I recently watched a video from Xariu where he argued that Classic Plus could eventually become bigger than retail World of Warcraft if it reaches its full maximum potential. Then I watched a Solheim reaction video to that where he argued almost the exact opposite of that, saying Classic Plus will probably not even reach the popularity of Classic in 2019. And I think they're both wrong. Solheim massively underestimates Classic Plus, but I also think even Xariu is selling it short. Because if Blizzard actually gets Classic Plus right long term, not just for a month or two, I don't think we're talking about a game that beats retail by a little. I think we're talking about something with the potential to become the biggest MMORPG the world has ever seen. That sounds insane at first, but hear me out. Xariu's argument is fairly simple and it's kind of correct. Retail probably has around 3 to 5 million players. Meanwhile, World of Warcraft has an estimated 110 to 120 million people that have played the game over its lifetime. People that for some reason at some point decided to stop playing for one reason or another. If Classic Plus convinces just 2% of those former players to come back, that's already about 2.4 million players. Assume that most of the estimated 4.5 million people that tried Classic in 2019 will give Classic Plus a try. Combine these two numbers and you already are above retail with almost 7 million players. Because keep in mind, maybe you forgot about this, but there were a lot of people back in 2019 that said something like, yeah, I like vanilla, I like it a lot, it's a great game, I miss it, but I also played it before. Been there, done that kind of situation. I will not play a re-release. I will just enjoy my memories. Back then, I thought they were kind of crazy, but now I have to say, while I don't relate, I totally get their point of view. Classic Plus is something that will interest those people. I even think that's a bit of a conservative scenario, because out of those 120 million players, if the game keeps being good for a few months or a few years and not losing all its hype at launch, I think we could see 5% of them come back, and that already puts us above 10 million players. Even if we just stop there and decide that we will never get more than 5% of those people back, we are already above retail World of Warcraft by a lot. But this does not stop here, and this is why even Xariu is wrong when talking about the absolute best case scenario and the maximum potential of Classic Plus. First of all, retail is not a game I see having any real long-term growth left. Very few people start playing that game for real. Yes, it's currently the biggest MMORPG, and that sounds incredibly impressive until you look at the state of the genre. MMOs are shrinking, innovation is non-existent. The newest major MMO that is still relevant today launched almost a decade ago. The genre is simply it's not in a good place. So when World of Warcraft, the biggest MMO IP in history, backed by Microsoft with 20 years of brand recognition and billions of dollars behind it, is only barely the biggest MMO on the market, that's honestly not as impressive as it sounds. It's kind of pathetic. Hell, we don't even know for certain that it's still the number one. FF14 or Guild Wars 2 could be right there with it. Even if they're smaller, they're certainly not miles behind, not anymore. The difference is that those games don't have the Warcraft cultural legacy and they aren't backed by one of the biggest companies on the planet. Retail World of Warcraft is actually, it's pathetic when you put it in perspective, but anyway, here's the part both Solheim and Xariu completely overlooked. Former World of Warcraft players are only the first audience Classic Plus could reach. Sure, if the game is genuinely good over a long period of time, maybe 5% of those 120 million former World of Warcraft players eventually come back, alongside a larger chunk of the people who loved Classic in 2019 as well. As I said, that alone could push the game beyond 10 million players. But I don't think it stops there. Not in the best case scenario at least. Just look at Old School RuneScape. Over the last few years, the game has kept getting better and better, bigger and bigger. Jagex consistently delivers good content, talks to its community, actually respects its players, and eventually word gets out. People outside the RuneScape community start hearing about it. That's literally how I started playing OSRS a few months ago. The hype slowly spreads through the old school MMO communities. We all have seen classic World of Warcraft players jump over to RuneScape. I've seen EverQuest players give it a shot, Lord of the Rings players. I've even ran into an old friend from the very first MMO I played back in 2006, Cabal Online. That's what happens when an MMO builds a great reputation. At launch, it attracts its core audience, the people who would have tried it no matter what. In the case of Classic Plus, that's people like me and a huge portion of the players who tried Classic in 2019. If the game stays good for a few months, it keeps most of those players while bringing in the first wave of skeptics. That's where the first chunk of those 120 million former World of Warcraft players starts returning. If it stays good for another year, even more come back, but eventually something even more interesting starts happening. The game begins attracting players who were never part of the original World of Warcraft audience in the first place. Imagine this, you're an OSRS player, for months all you hear is how amazing Classic Plus is. The player count keeps climbing, every content creator is talking about it, every MMO community keeps mentioning it. Eventually your curiosity gets the better of you and try the game. That's how it happens. Or maybe your own MMO drops the ball at some point. It happens. Maybe the latest update sucks. Maybe you're just burned out and want a break. What's the first game you're going to check out? Probably the MMO everyone has been talking about for the past year. That's exactly what OSRS has been doing for years, and it's still happening today. If I'm not mistaken, it's currently on its 4th consecutive year of increasing its peak concurrent player count. That's the power of momentum. Whenever an MMO develops a reputation for being consistently great, it creates a bandwagon effect. People naturally want to see what all the hype is about. I also want to have fun with the rest of the kids, kind of thing. The opposite is also true. Once the people start believing an MMO is dying, that decline accelerates because fewer and fewer people want to invest hundreds or thousands of hours into a game they think has no future. So yes, if we're talking about the absolute best case scenario, I think Classic Plus clears retail easily. And honestly, becoming bigger than retail isn't the impossible achievement people make it out to be. Not when you're Blizzard, not when you're backed by Microsoft, not when you're building on the most beloved gaming universes ever created, not when your game has a ton of hype behind it. People see retail potentially being the biggest MMO and assume that means it's some untouchable giant. I think they're missing the bigger picture. The MMO genre is in the weakest state it's ever been. Most new MMOs fail, and most of the ones that survive come from relatively small studios trying to compete in the most expensive genre in gaming. Retail isn't dominating a golden age of MMORPGs, it's surviving in a genre that's struggling. A genre that is struggling not because it has to, but because it refuses to innovate. It's like taking a mediocre football club, giving it unlimited money, the best coaches in the world, and then putting it in a league where the other teams are made out of kids, and then saying that the adults barely winning in that league are some legends, when in reality it is pathetic, it is a joke. Solheim also talks about the lack of big content creators that played Classic in 2019 and probably will not come back for Classic Plus. Asmongold is the obvious example, and while I honestly have no idea what Asmongold is up to anymore, I think he'd at least give the game a shot. But even if he doesn't, are we forgetting that the biggest content creator event in World of Warcraft's history didn't happen in 2019 when Classic launched and the hype was supposedly at its peak? It happened years later during Blizzard's complete neglect of Classic with the OnlyFang events. Hundreds of streamers coming together to play Classic WoW, many of whom had never streamed an MMO in their lives. And it didn't happen once, it happened twice. My brother had no idea Classic launched back in 2019, but he knew about OnlyFans. So I'm not convinced that the content creator argument really works. If anything, it proves the opposite. Classic has already shown it can generate massive interest years after the launch, even without Blizzard doing much to support it. We don't need all the big old names, even though some of them might return. Who knows? Will Classic Plus create another OnlyFans? Probably. Will it be so bigger on Twitch and on YouTube as Classic was in 2019? I don't know. I'm sure it's not gonna be much smaller anyway, and I wouldn't be surprised if it created something even bigger. And one last thing, just keep in mind that even a disastrous launch wouldn't necessarily kill Classic Plus. Just look at Old School RuneScape again. Today it's one of the healthiest MMORPGs on the market, but a year or two after launch, it almost died. At one point, it dropped barely over 5,000 concurrent players. Maybe that failure, maybe that's the best thing that ever happened to the game. It forced Jagex to rethink their approach. They stopped relying on nostalgia alone, started listening to the community, and began building new content that stayed true to the original game instead of replacing it. That's basically what made them get their Classic Plus. That's the version of OSRS we know today. So if Classic Plus launches and it disappoints, maybe that's the best case scenario actually. Maybe that's exactly the wake-up call Blizzard needs. Maybe the current Blizzard simply isn't capable of delivering the best version of Classic Plus on their first attempt because they are cocky, because they are stupid, and they need that kick in the butt. And that's okay, because I'd rather see Blizzard fail, I would even be happy to see Blizzard fail, always, and then learn and spend the next few years building an incredible MMORPG, then get one good launch day and slowly repeat the same mistakes they've been making for the last decade. So I will end up with this. In my opinion, even the average outcome has a good chance of making Classic Plus much bigger than retail within a few months. And honestly, I don't even see that as an extraordinary achievement. Retail is competing in a genre that's been stagnant for years. The real benchmark isn't beating retail. A real benchmark would be finally being able not to overcome, but to at least compete with the actual big live service games people talk about and people play. League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Fortnite, Valorant. Games that actually mean something and actually have big player bases and are part of competitive genres where it's not easy to be the number one. If Classic Plus reaches that level, then Blizzard won't have just made another successful expansion, another successful MMO. They'll have created something the MMO genre hasn't seen in a very long time. A game that people outside the MMO community will talk about. Also, by the way, I just want to say, this is not me saying Classic Plus will be amazing and Blizzard will do a great job. We will wait and see. You have to be absolutely insane to have any blind faith, any kind of faith in Blizzard at all anymore. Never trust them. Just wait and see. If the game has a box price, don't buy it on release. That is my advice. Wait until some stupid guy like me wastes his money first and then use that info to decide for yourself if you want to buy it. Anyway, I need to end the video so I can go to a retirement home for old people and beat some of them up, so I can tell myself I am a super powerful fighter because none of them can stop me, just like Retail WoW. Let me know what you think about the video. Am I coping or am I correct? Why do you guys think I'm stupid? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to sub to the channel. Till the next time, peace!